Welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. We're coming right off of an Eagles loss. What went well? What went wrong? Then we're going to go ahead and talk about the Giants. Let's talk about it.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
See, on this week's episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia, I have Elvis Chilakis and Trevor Gregoric here on desk with me to talk about the Eagles. We just came off of a pretty close defeat at the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs. And, you know, in my opinion, it was a good game. It sucks that we lost. But, yeah, I saw some opportunities for growth. This episode, we're going to talk about it. So, Elvis, what are your first impressions on, you know, our defense right now, starting off of that loss?
I think the defense played really great. I mean, it really it is all dependent on how Jim Schwartz wants to coach the team and everything like that. But it's just like I feel like they played great. They keep us in contention with these games, especially with teams like the Chiefs and with our schedule that's coming up with the Seahawks and everything. They got to keep us in contention with these like big elite teams because defense wins championships. Like you see the cliche quote around like T-shirts and everything. They really are the blueprint of this team as well. The offense could do as much as they want, but the defense they are the key to success.
You know, Trevor, talking about the offense, you know, we had a couple missed opportunities on some pretty good-looking drives, some fumbles, some interceptions, some tip passes to be interceptions. How do you feel about our offense? Do you think we're ready to go up against the Giants? Or?
I think we are ready to go up against the Giants. We have some things to work on. I think the running game is one of the things that really needs to improve if we want to go far this season. It'll take a lot of pressure off Carson Wentz, and it'll make his life easier and the wide receivers' lives easier. And so if we can get that under control, I think we're in pretty good shape going into the rest of the season.
All right, now let's bring up the stats from Sunday. Let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown, kind of like where our players were at. You know, we had Alshon Jeffrey. He actually got targeted a lot recently. And that was pretty good because, you know, the first game we didn't really use him too much. We kind of threw to Aguilar. We threw some deep balls to a couple different players. They didn't come down with it. But Alshon, you know, he's being worked in. The game started with Smallwood, but, you know, Darren Sproles got a lot of runs. You know, our defense, you know, 4 seconds, they look pretty good. They lost a couple of times on trying to bring down Alex Smith. And, you know, sometimes it's like that. You know, we suffered a couple of injuries. So, Elvis, tell me, like, what do you think the next step, the next improvement that we should take on defense in order to be more competitive?
I'm not sure exactly, but I guess like there's basic simple fundamentals like tackling and like having stripping of the ball, like possession. We need to focus on those type of things because those are the things that cost us the game in Kansas City. When Vinny Curry, he couldn't tackle Alex Smith. If he tackles Alex Smith for a loss, and that puts Kansas City out of the field goal range, and it just, I don't know, the game could have went differently. But it's just basic, simple mistakes that are able to be fixed. And if the defense can actually fix those mistakes, then, whew, this defense is going to be really good this year if they can do that.
And Trevor, so you know, going back to talking about the offense, talking about the run game that we had, we're not being consistent with the weapons that we're using. In my opinion, we're kind of still figuring it out. Who do you think our best running back is after 2 games though on the roster?
After 2 games, I wish I could say it was LeGarrette Blount, but I think Smallwood and Darren Sproles are showing speed on the outside. I think everyone wanted LeGarrette Blount to come in and be a force running downhill, but he hasn't shown us what we wanted to see so far. So with some speed, hopefully we can Smallwood and Sproles can keep it up into the next few games, and hopefully LeGarrette Blount can find his feet and step it up as well, because he could be a real force with speed on the outside then as well.
And you know, you can see here we had 13 design runs coming out of Peterson's camp. You know, Hines Ward is our running backs coach, and you see him on the sideline every single game, you know, yelling at his running backs, trying to get them to get going, and it's kind of rough. Like, you see other players already have their franchise running backs, so we're still figuring it out. I think it's one of the biggest things blocking us from really having a consistent offense. You know, Carson Wentz is looking pretty good. Talking about Carson Wentz, Elvis, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about his relationship with Zach Ertz now that, you know, he's finally, you know, he's throwing to Zach Ertz consistently. Zach Ertz appears to be fighting for the ball. Do you think this is going to be a consistent positive trend going on, or do you think this is just some luck?
I feel like you could say that with all the other players. I mean, I think Carson Wentz had that trip to North Dakota to like communicate and develop chemistry with his players. But I think Zach Ertz, after we traded away Jordan Matthews, Zach Ertz is his favorite target right now. He is Wentz's go-to guy almost, you know, and he plays. So it's like, I feel like the chemistry will just keep continuing to build with this team, and you can already see the improvements that Carson Wentz has already produced for this team as opposed to his rookie year. So it's exciting to see this young quarterback grow and to see how well he can bond with his teammates, and as well as how he will lead this team to, you know, hopefully a couple more victories like the game against Washington.
All right, so yeah, Trevor, so let's talk about Zach Ertz specifically. You know, he's been around here for a while. We also have Brenton Selleck, who's an old-time Eagle, and now we have Trey Burton. Now, Zach Ertz's performance has looked pretty good these past 2 weeks. Do you think he's going to really solidify his starting position and like keep it, or do you think Trey Burton is actually going to be able to improve every week and then be able to take that spot from him?
No, I think Zach Ertz is going to be the go-to guy for Carson Wentz now. He's very reliable, and he's able to catch the ball and take hits at the same time. We have weapons in the wide receiver position, but if our opposing defenses focus on Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith, Ertz will be definitely the go-to guy. So I think he's going to solidify himself as the starting tight end on this team.
And so let's talk about the game overall. You know, it went 27-20. It was a really close game, especially at the start. For a while there in the first quarter, there were no touchdowns. There were just, you know, it was 3-3, then it was 6-3. You know, we took that game back. You know, it was kind of rough. Elvis, what did you think, you know, after the end of the first quarter? Do you think it was going to be that close ongoing, coming off of their strong performance against the Patriots? Or, like, where did you see ourselves going to be going into halftime?
Wow, there's many different things that could have gone differently for the team, but it's just like I personally wasn't expecting the Eagles to win, but I would never choose against them. And then I would obviously, the way I saw them fought in the first half when they kept that game that close was 2 field goals. There was a field goal difference for the lead, and it's just like, I don't know. There's so many things that could have went differently with this team, but like, there was obviously some confidence when you hold the team like the Chiefs down to six points in the first half. You're obviously going to go down in that locker room and have a little bit of confidence, saying that, yeah, we can definitely win this game. We can definitely win this game against a team that is probably going to be a playoff contender in the next couple of weeks. But it really demonstrates the momentum this team has, and really you got to see how that shifts and how that translates into the second half. But, you know, first half is just, you know, 30 minutes of just playtime, and then I guess, you know, there's so many things that could have went differently, but overall I think they had a pretty good tone to the game overall.
And Trevor, let's talk about momentum again. You know, we suffered this loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you think that, you know, this is really going to hurt the motivation for our players? You know, we're losing players every game. Do you think that this is going to motivate them to, you know, they went up against a playoff-capable team. They kept it close. They were winning at one point. Sure, they kind of lost it at the end, but do you think that this game is going to be a motivator, or do you think it's going to be a demotivator?
I think it's definitely going to be a motivator, especially going into the Giants this upcoming week. Our defense showed great signs against the Chiefs, and I think with the Giants' offensive line, the Eagles can have a field day hitting Eli Manning like pretty much all game long. So I think it's going to be a motivator. We need to come out and we need to show the league what our defense can do against the Giants and just propel off that.
And, you know, it's great that you brought up the Giants again. If we can go ahead and throw our picks up on the screens, and we go ahead and take a look at what you guys predict, what I predicted. So it's nice to see last week, it was kind of iffy. Two of us had predicted the Chiefs were going to win, myself included. And it was a hard game to call. It was a decision that, we had to make. As you can see here, though, we all want the Eagles to win. We all believe that the Eagles are going to win. I pitched it 28-10 Eagles with Michael Kendricks being the MVP. He played a really strong game last week. Elvis has the Eagles winning 34-17 with Fletcher Cox being the MVP. And then Trevor has the Eagles winning 24-10 with Brandon Graham being the MVP. And I think it's really interesting that we all chose some leaders on the defense. As we saw in the Chiefs game, that the defense really kept us in the game with some crucial, third and short stops. Sure, we lost some, but overall, it was pretty good. So out of the three defensive players that we picked, now that we're all here talking about it, who do you think out of the three has the strongest chance of making big plays? And I'll go to both of those questions. Elvis, you first.
I guess, I don't know, there's no specific one player on this defense that can actually make plays because our front seven is just, you don't want to mess with them with those guys because you got Curry, you got Cox, you got Jernigan, who players we didn't even mention before or picked as MVPs, but it's just really the whole defense as a whole can make these plays. It's not just one player, it's just the whole defense, I guess.
Trevor?
I would agree 100% with that. I don't think any one player is going to play better than anyone else. I think this defense is a unit. And as I said before, this is an incredibly weak Giants offensive line. And so if we can take advantage of that, I think they'll look fantastic against the Giants. We just need to take advantage and limit the missed tackles, I think.
And Elvis, who do you think is going to be, because the Giants, they have some pretty good options. They have Odell Beckham Jr., they got Brandon Marshall now. Who do you think is going to be able to really stop them? Because imagine they could pop off at any moment if they want to. Who in our secondary do you think is going to be able to stop them?
I guess Jalen Mills, because he's shown some effort and some consistency over this second year. He is a sophomore overall, and he's learning from his rookie mistakes, and he's now hopefully that he will get into tight coverage with Odell Beckham Jr. and everybody else. But I'm hoping the best for the Green Goblin to do his job and to do a little bit more finger wagging against the Giants. But yeah, I'm thinking Jalen Mills will actually learn from this experience, and he will be a determining factor in this game because the offense, like you said, the wide receiver corps for the Giants is really stacked, and we know that Odell Beckham Jr. isn't going to be 100%, but he's going to perform with all his effort. So we got to stop the Giants, and especially winning against the Giants and putting them in the 0-3 spot. It's very good right now.
Yeah, talking about conference play, it's great to see that we're at the, technically we're in the top of the NFC East, which is pretty good. Trevor, do you think that's going to be a trend that continues? Do you think that, talking about our conference rivals, the Redskins, they just won one, the Cowboys lost one, pretty tragically, I should say, which is a pretty good thing around here. But do you think that this is going to be a positive, momentum change for us? Do you think we're going to be able to keep that #1 spot for very long?
Yeah, I'm pretty optimistic, actually. I think the Eagles are going to keep it up. Going back to the Cowboys, that was a pretty crushing defeat that they took this past week, and it shows that they're not I don't think they're the team that they were last year. I think they rode the wave last year, but it's a new year. Anything can happen. And I think it's going to come down to the Eagles and the Cowboys, but I think the Eagles come out on top, definitely.
And I want to go back to really get into our running back situation. And, because me personally, I'm tired of seeing such a shift between, who we're starting here, who we're starting here, who's going to be in on what downs, who we're going to trust in what situation, Smallwood, Blunt, Sproles. I personally, I think it's great that we picked up Blunt. Do you guys think that any of our options are really going to be able to last very long, or do you think we should start looking towards future drafts, maybe some trades? Elvis, what do you think?
That's the biggest question right now. Our running game has just been non-existent. You got Garrett Blunt, who has taken over DeMarco Murray's number, and he's kind of reflecting his own stats. Remember DeMarco Murray in 2015, he didn't have a good start to the year as well, but I don't know. It's like, I don't really blame Doug Peterson's decisions to not really trust the run game when you have that type of personnel that doesn't really, Smallwood is getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage. The only person that seems reliable to me, in my own opinion, is Sproles, because he seems to be able to catch the ball, run the ball, and get into these holes, and it just seems like he's the one that's only making plays. And I feel like we haven't mentioned his name too often, but I think Corey Clement should actually get a chance as well, because he should get a few snaps as well. And obviously, if you want to keep Garrett Blunt happy, so you got to give him the ball as well, because you got to, I don't know, it's just like, There's so many questions with the run game, but hopefully it will answer itself out in the meantime.
You know, and of course, we can't really have a strong run game without a consistently solid offensive line. Trevor, do you think that our offensive line can improve their blocking, because they've been pretty hit or miss a lot of times? They'll leave some holes open for defenders to just run up. You can see it happen to Carson Wentz. You see it happen when we get tackles for loss. Who do you think is our weakest link on the offensive line?
Ooh, that's tough to say. I think, going back to how I talked about the defense, I think you can't pick out one offensive line player. I think they all need to work together as a unit. If that happens, I think they'll be in a really good position. But until they gel together and until they know the strengths and weaknesses of each other, I think it could be a very hit or miss offensive line. Once they figure that out, I think they're all very talented. So I think we can only go up from here, but they really need to figure it out in these next few weeks, especially against the Giants. And hopefully we could carry some momentum into the future tougher games.
Mm-hmm. And one player I do want to talk about specifically, Jason Peters. You know, he's our oldest lineman at this point. He's a leader on the team. You always see him trying to coach his younger, offensive linemen. But do you think that his time with the Eagles is going to carry on for a couple more seasons, or do you think that maybe it's time to really start looking at, trying to offload him or something? Elvis, do you think his time is done?
I don't know if his time with Days or time with the Eagles is numbered, but hopefully he can stick around for another 1 or 2 years. Definitely he can build up that leadership skill that he has with this team, because you obviously see, even though he makes these mistakes about like false starts and like making these like mental mistakes, he's truly a leader on this team, and he definitely deserves that captain patch on his uniform if he does, have one, because the way he leads the team is like he is, without Carson Wentz, he is the leader of the offense. Like we have Malcolm Jenkins or Jordan Hicks, who's the leader of the defense. I personally think that Jason Peters can actually take that role as like the father figure of the offense.
And one more player I want to talk about before the break, Matt Collins. You saw him, he came in about the second half for a couple of plays. Do you think, looking at his performance in the week one and throughout preseason, is pretty solid? Do you think that the time is now to really start working him in, getting him more drives, or like Trevor, do you think honestly, like, should we just start focusing on our younger players even more? Torrey Smith hasn't really caught many things thrown his way. Sure, he had a lot of deep receptions, but what do you think about Matt Collins really quickly?
Well, I think he played very well this past week. I think he only had like 2 catches, but he showed great promise. And so I think we need to work him in here and there, but I'd like to see like Torrey Smith hopefully step it up, because he could be a great weapon. But definitely Matt Collins, if we work him in, he shows tons of promise. So.
All right, so that sounds pretty good to me. We're going to go ahead and continue this talk about the Eagles right after this break. I really try to, throw them off. I kind of like...
3, 2, 1, action. You may think a guy would be producing this, but I can too. Anyone can find a cure.
Women are being downgraded for their physical ability, but you can be just as strong.
%20 of women are engineers, but it doesn't stop there.
I'm a tech girl. I'm a tech girl.
I am a tech girl.
I am a tech girl.
I see my friends out there getting waves. It's like, it's hard. It was a surprise to me when they told me I had MS. It's like, you sure?
Well, this is a virtual reality rig, and this is going to allow Steve to see and experience the waves that I ride.
Put that on your head. Whoa.
Welcome back from the break. Once again, I have Trevor and Elvis here on desk to talk with me about the Eagles. Right now, we're going to really talk about the defense specifically. We kind of touched on some things before the break. Now I really want to, get down, break down, and see if we can actually come away the Giants game with a win. Talking about that pass rush specifically, we got Curry, we got Cox, we got Barnett's looking pretty good too, Graham, and so we got a lot of great weapons on defense, and that's just the defensive line. Do you think that our defensive line is going to be able to consistently penetrate Elvis, or do you think that they're going to be stopped up? Is this the game where they just go crazy? I'm talking about 8 sacks, 9 sacks. How do you feel?
Well, to build off that, I think you got to see if this is the same Giants, the team that's going to come in here that played the last 2 games, because the last 2 games they played horrible. The offensive line was not protecting Eli Manning at all, and he was just getting battered and hurried and tackled in all sorts of ways. So, I mean, personally, I feel like the Giants are just going to stay consistent. They're going to be the same team that we saw in the past 2 games. So our defensive line is just going to eat. It's going to be very fun to watch the game, and obviously against a divisional rival, at home. This is our first game at home as well. I feel like they will really have a bunch of opportunities to hurry Eli Manning, get him uncomfortable, maybe move him around in the pocket a little bit, and maybe make him force some throws. And overall, I'm thinking, if this is the same Giants defense that was playing the last 2 games, then hopefully, this could actually be a really good game. But obviously, you can't take any game for granted, and you can't overestimate or underestimate them as well.
Yeah, Trevor, Eli Manning is one of the best quarterbacks that the Giants have ever seen. Won 2 Super Bowls with them, both against the Patriots. But, do you think that he is going to be ready come Sunday for, our big hog malice coming down the offensive line? Eli Manning's mentality now coming off of 2 straight defeats that, games that he technically should have been able to lead his team and win. But now that he's losing, do you think his motivation's going? What do you think is going through his head?
I think he might be pretty rattled, honestly. I think he's old enough, though, to realize what he needs to do in the upcoming games, but I think it's the rest of the offense for the Giants that really needs, if they want to compete against the Eagles' defense, they need to figure something out, because their run game has been pretty non-existent in these last 2 games, and if that keeps up, the Eagles are going to have a field day. The offensive line of the Giants is pretty weak, as I said before, and so I think a lot of things are pointing to the Eagles' defense doing really well this week. They need to take advantage, and they need to rattle Eli Manning early, because if they can get to him early, get him on the ground a few times in the first quarter, I think we can only build off that into the second half, and we can come away with a win if our defense plays really well.
And Elvis, just a quick thing from you. How many sacks do you think that our defensive line is going to be able to get? Just ballpark number.
For the game, I think I'd say about 3 to 5 sacks, because I think we're capable of those kind of numbers, because I think the past 2 games with the Redskins and the Chiefs, we had a total of 8, I think. So I guess we can add another 5 to that total, because the Giants' offensive line, including Eric Flowers, who's been really struggling the past couple games, he's just been, I don't know, there's not a lot of chemistry and consistency with this offensive line. And with this offense, we had some comments about Ben McAdoo and Eli Manning, there's always some controversy in New York, and it could possibly become a dumpster fire. But overall, I think this defense can, if like I said before, if the same Giants team comes up, then it won't be really good for the Giants. They'll be in this big hole, and they'll be really desperate in this game as well.
And Trevor, so let's talk about the secondary, our very hurt, injured secondary. Right. It's falling apart. Mm-hmm. But do you think that, looking at it, how dire do you think our situation is? Jalen Watkins, McLeod, it's looking rough. Do you think that we're going to reach an emergency situation where we're going to have to start looking at the free agents? Or how do you feel about it?
I mean, it is looking rough. Hopefully we don't need to look to free agents, or we don't get in a dire situation. But if things keep up the way they're going, we might have to. And I think that would be a hit on the secondary, just based on gelling and chemistry. But hopefully the guys can get better soon. I don't know if McLeod's injury is too devastating. So hopefully he's back in the next few weeks. And that would be a great help. But yeah, hopefully we don't need to do anything too serious yet.
And Elvis, how do you feel about Rasul Douglas getting out there, this past week versus the Chiefs?
I personally enjoyed to have him get his first experience in the NFL, because he obviously saw how Jalen Watkins was playing in the first quarter, and he wasn't really playing up to standards. But Rasul Douglas, the first thing that I noticed was he knew how to tackle. He actually wanted to get into the game and actually participate in this game. But I feel like he will have a lot more opportunities. Obviously, he will have those days where he seems kind of off. But I think getting this experience, especially in this rookie level, then he will obviously might even become a star of this team if he keeps this up.
So I think it's time now, after such an exciting Eagles talk, to talk about everybody's favorite segment of the show, Fast Five, where we're coming at you with quick questions, quick answers, maybe not so quick answers, depending on how you guys answer it. But first, I'm going to come at you, Elvis. The Phillies they've been on fire recently. They're sweeping the Dodgers. What do you think is the key to their success?
Oh, if there's not really one single person, but obviously Reese Hoskins, J.P. Crawford, Nick Williams, all these young guys that are coming from the minor leagues and really rejuvenating this team. It's going to be really exciting to see how this team can gel together. And we still got people in the minor leagues still seasoning. We got Kingery, we got Cousins, we got a bunch of people in the minor leagues. So I'm guessing like next year this team will be very fun to watch, and hopefully in 2019 we can be considered a playoff contender with how this team is assembled now.
All right, and Trevor, so the situation with Joel Embiid, he's not being cleared yet. Are you worried about it? Do you think that things are going to be fine? How do you feel?
I'm a little worried, but I'm also trying to stay optimistic. I think that's the only thing with this team is staying healthy. If they stay healthy, I think they're a playoff team this year. But that's the huge question, if they can stay healthy or not.
And going back to you, Elvis, so Chase Utley. Do you think he's a Hall of Famer? He came back this week with the Dodgers. How do you feel?
I feel like he is an Hall of Famer, especially in a couple of years. I think that Chase Utley will get that plaque on the Wall of Fame, but there's only two people that I call the man, and that's Jesus and that's Chase Utley as well. But I personally think he is a Hall of Famer, regardless of what people have to say about him. But yeah, definitely, if not a Hall of Famer, then at least Wall of Fame for the Phillies as well.
All right, Trevor, so, Ben Simmons has been pretty popular. Brett Brown was talking about him, calling him an assassin. Whose game do you compare Ben Simmons to? Any player? Who do you think?
That's tough to say. I'm hoping like LeBron James, just big guy playing point. So I don't know, if he can show any signs of LeBron James, I'd be incredibly happy with that.
All right, Elvis, coming back to you with another Chase Utley question. He was here for so long. We won a championship with him. Do you think the fans should cheer for him or not?
I think they should cheer for him, but there's obviously going to be a point where it's going to become oversaturated. So obviously there's going to be a point where we have to cheer, especially if he ties the game up like he did last night. But obviously there is going to be a point where we're going to have to stop. But there are going to be some rebels in the crowd as well. But I feel like we should cheer him still.
All right, I agree with you. I feel like we should cheer as well. But that's all for this week's episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. We talked about sports. We're going to look at the Eagles game this Sunday. They're going to win. They're going to knock the Giants out of the park. So that's it for the show. I would like to thank Elvis Chilagis and Trevor Gregoric, and I would thank all of my wonderful crew here today. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Sports Talk LTV. All of our social media is right up there on the screen. Give us a follow. Give us a like. Thanks for watching.